Whatever.
That it may be Osama bin Laden, the mastermind behind the East African embassy bombings several years ago. Back to you, John.
All right, Rita Cosby, thanks very much. I want to bring into the conversation William Daley. Bill, I know that Osama bin Laden likes airplanes, and again, we are not attributing this act to his organization, but he was implicated in a plot to blow up something like 13 airliners in 13 days, or 8 in 8 days, that back in the Philippines back in the 1980s, I believe.
Exactly.
Airplanes have been his terrorist weapon of choice in the past.
They have, because they hold for someone like a bin Laden or other terrorists. The fact that you could take a plane and within just the number of people on the plane commit such a horrendous act at one time makes an impact to the world. Combine that with what we see in front of our eyes today at the World Trade Center, and you certainly conjure up the worst possible scenario that certainly law enforcement could think of what a terrorist might do. Before we get on to, possibly bin Laden, there are certainly other terrorist groups around the world that would like to do things like this. The question would be who might be able to actually carry out such an incident, whether by sheer manpower, training, or some other device. So although he's certainly our poster boy literally for terrorism worldwide, there are other groups out there that certainly have also ill intent against the United States. But what we see before us today is, as I mentioned before, is something that in planning scenarios gets almost into the catastrophic, where it's to prevent something like this from happening. Planes fly by, John, as you may know, and I know, having traveled in and out of the city, going down the East River by the hundreds each day, by the thousands each week, and passing by the Trade Center.
At rooftop level.
Look down and you see the antenna, you see the windows. So this is something that even on a bad day, they fly up and down that route. Today was a perfectly clear day in New York.
Even if some air traffic controllers saw those airplanes, and certainly they would have been in view of air traffic control, it might not have looked all that unusual.
The first plane, which from my appearance, I saw it over Fifth Avenue heading south when I was coming to work, appeared to be a 737, or as I said, a smaller Airbus. That could fit with what Rita just reported, that her sources are saying that perhaps it was a plane hijacked from Boston, which obviously is north, that is a used air route down through Manhattan before planes make a left into LaGuardia. So clearly, perhaps there may not have been an indication that something was wrong at that time.
I just want to remind our viewers that the NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange have not opened for the day for obvious reasons. This catastrophic terrorist attack on the World Trade Center right there in the Wall Street area. The two markets have not opened for the day. No word yet on when they will open, but clearly, given this kind of turmoil, you don't want to throw the financial markets into a complete panic. John Fund from the Wall Street Journal is on the phone with us. John, were you in the area when the planes hit?
I was across the street in my office building.
What did you see? What did you hear?
I heard an incredible sonic boom, and looked up, and there were already much smoke and flames pouring out of the building. And about 15 minutes later, of course, a second sonic boom, which of course would have been the second tower and the second plane.
What about injuries, John?
Well,
can you tell us?
The most terrible and heartrending thing about this is, about 15 minutes ago, bodies started dropping from the top floors of the tower closest to the highway, about at least 5 or 6, and it was absolutely terrible. Obviously, they had two choices: to be burned in flames or to leap and end it all. It was quite tragic.
So these are people who apparently survived the initial explosion and fire and then found themselves engulfed in smoke.
Yes, and they obviously had no alternatives at that point.
John, I guess you just heard the explosions. You didn't get a chance to see the planes involved.
No, I did not, but I looked up immediately afterwards, and of course the flames were everywhere. There's an enormous jagged hole in the first tower. The second hole in the second tower is much less extensive and much less dramatic, but there's flames out of that too. And of course there are flames burning in the parking lot across the street from the World Trade Center because of debris that has fallen down. And of course there's complete pandemonium here. And every building in the neighborhood is being evacuated or has been evacuated.
Yeah, that's the prudent thing to do, certainly. We are looking at video of the second plane hitting the World Trade Center. When we saw it happen on live television, as we were talking about what at that point were only rumors of a plane hitting the first tower, then that second one came into view, and it became pretty clear what's going on here.